Let's talk about the air raid alert, Nat. You just saw it. That's the north and the east. The air raid alert keeps sounding there. Protect yourselves as much as possible, given the conditions you're in right now. Defense. There were 235 combat clashes on the front over the past day. The General Staff reports that the hottest spot is the Pokrovsk direction. The occupiers tried to advance 63 times near Rodenske, Zatishki, and Pokrovsk itself. In the Huliaipol direction in Zaporizhia, the enemy attacked 37 times. Our positions. It's tense in the Kostiantynivka direction. Again, we're moving to the Donetsk region. There, Ukrainian soldiers repelled 28 assaults. In Slovyansk, the enemy launched 8 attacks near Yampel and Dronivka, while near Kupyansk, they attempted to breach defenses near Pischane. Viktor Trehubov has details. He's spokesperson for the Joint Forces Group. Viktor, are you there?
I hear you well. Greetings to you. Go ahead.
Glory to the heroes and to all those who are bringing our victory closer. Glory as well. Let's get to the details. So what's happening in Kupyansk now? What's going on in the outskirts? What details should we know as of this moment? So we can understand the contribution of our people in holding this settlement.
Yesterday, there were 22 direct border incidents recorded in the city. Well, 22 incidents means 22 radios. So in fact, there are probably more of them. But we're already noting that there aren't that many more, as there could have been. So there are just a few dozen people. All of them are concentrated in one specific place, in one particular block. This is a block of high-rise buildings to the north of the city center, in the hospital district. That's where they're concentrated, that's where they've dug in, and that's where they're holding their defense, basically in a few of these high-rises. They aren't able to conduct active operations, but they're trying to survive, thanks to the fact that they're being supplied by air. That's if we're talking specifically about the city itself, specifically about the forces that are surrounded there. If we look at the outskirts of the city, if we look east of the city, particularly the area around the Kupyansk railway junction, there the enemy continues active attacks. But again, they're not having any success. The same goes for the enemy's attempts to enter from the north and infiltrate the city. Even though they actively tried to use the remnants of infrastructure objects like pipes and made active attempts to use the rivers, so far the rivers have, let's say, remained in a more stable condition. But nevertheless, in the case of Kupyansk, we can already say with enough confidence that there is firm control over the city and that the Russian attempts have failed. Somehow they couldn't resist the Ukrainians there.
So the group of Russians who are blocked in the city, what kind of weapons do they have? What danger do they pose? What should we understand about them?
Light weapons, so to speak. There's basically nothing else there, really. These are people who are holed up in other buildings, and in these buildings, they've just set up a circular defense. Food is being dropped to them, and so are munitions. Plus, again, the Russians can put pressure on the city using UAVs. Even if they weren't being targeted there, the distance from the Russian positions to the city is small. They can spot Ukrainian positions with UAVs. Right now, just because the distance allows it, just like with artillery, for example. But again, if we're talking about those small contingents that are left there, they're basically unable to do anything except hold the defense in a specific spot and try to survive. They're not a blocking force. They're just people who are basically trapped.
That question. The one making soldiers smile bitterly. Where exactly is it hardest to hold the line right now? Where's the toughest fighting for our troops?
Look, here's the thing. It's a tough question because the intensity of fighting varies in different sectors. If we're talking about intensity, on one hand, the fighting can be more intense. For example, in the Lyman direction at certain times, because there really are a lot of Russians there. They're really present. But on the other hand, sometimes the situation can be tougher in the Vovchansk direction because everything there is so heavily destroyed that it's hard to even try to hold a position. And the Russians there, even though they have fewer forces, sometimes try to carry out offensive actions in conditions that are more favorable for them. So it's hard to make a clear determination here. That's why I put it this way. I'd say I'm somewhere between the Vovchansk and Lyman directions. It's just different. It's tough. Like in English, sometimes it's hard, sometimes it's difficult. Sometimes it's complicated. Sometimes it's hard.
Ukrainian has equivalents too, and some are even suitable for broadcast. But once again, I want to thank those who are there, because thanks to them, we can be here and live our lives. If we're talking about Vovchansk, what has managed to improve? Where has the situation gotten worse? And what does the situation around this city look like now? And inside the city itself?
In Vovchansk, Ukrainian forces only control the southern outskirts of the city. We simply acknowledge this, but on the other hand, the city basically doesn't exist anymore. Sometimes they control it completely. The Russians are actively trying to force us to withdraw, attacking all sides of the city. This includes the area of the Vovchansk hamlets and the Staritsia area. They're trying to drive the Ukrainians out of the positions located directly nearby. The fact that we're holding them now is already a positive sign. Considering that the positions are simply destroyed, and considering how close the remnants of the city are to the Russian border, directly so. I don't remember how far the southern outskirts are, but the northern outskirts are just 4 kilometers from the border. So let's put it this way. The situation there was tense from the very beginning, but honestly, this city has truly shown its heroism. It has simply destroyed such a large. The number of Russians here is staggeringly and disproportionately large for its size over these long and grueling 2.5 years for how long the city has held out. Let's be honest, this is absolutely not the level that an army of the Russian Federation's supposed caliber should be showing in a relatively small and isolated border town.
If we're talking about the Russians on the other side of the line of contact, who, how many, and in what condition they're amassing, what specific things do you think could help them successfully reach their primary objectives, in your opinion, as of now?
We're not talking about numbers right now. For some reason, they're constantly trying to rotate their troops. But the thing is, if we're talking about our sector, it's more about replenishing their numbers than increasing them. Well, for the most part. One way or another, they have their own priorities. One way or another, they still do. They're throwing more forces in right now. In the direction, roughly speaking, of the zone Dyi, Skidvakad, and Bidnya towards Pokrovsk and Holy Pole. They're mostly replenishing and trying to push with whatever they have. As for pushing us, they simply can't and won't be able to start. They're just continuing. All that's left for them is to claim a third capture of Kupyansk or Viktor-Vuzlovyi. Go ahead.
Bless you.
Thank you. What about the quality? Honestly, it's average right now. Because on the one hand, they're mobilized men, the Mobiks as we call them. They're not all total lost causes or drunks, but for the most part, they're just regular people from Central Russia who've gone through some basic training. But the thing is, their motivation right now is honestly pretty weak. And because most of them, once they found themselves there, realized the situation they were in, they understood that their chances of survival weren't very high. And we constantly observe attempts by their command to motivate them through what are essentially so-called exchanges, which are actually killings of their own personnel. Sometimes I'd say rather creative killings. So in this kind of situation, we usually say that their morale isn't very high. If they have to resort to that, and in general, whenever they do, morale doesn't get any better, especially for the wounded. It's just a simulation of it.
You know, the motivation they've earned here is just in a pause before we continue with our next segment. Viktor Trehubov will be joining us. Thank you. The spokesperson for the Joint Forces Group spoke about the situation in the Kharkiv region.